Whispers of the Unseen, Episode 3. Interviewed and translated by Lamu. Produced by Witch Zatta. I am not a god. I was only ever human. Yet they carved my name into an amulet shell and called me the god of literature. Let me tell you who I was. Not a monk, not a saint, not a holy figure who commanded spirits or thunder. I was simply a teacher. Each day I sat at a wooden desk, chalk in hand, writing characters on the blackboard. I guided children through the strokes of words, reminding them to slow down, to breathe, to be honest. I told them that kindness mattered more than success, that decency was worth more than wealth. My life was not rich, but it was steady. In my little courtyard, I planted bamboo. When the afternoon light slanted through the leaves, children's laughter would mingle with the shadows. That was enough for me, more than enough. I did not dream of greatness, only of being useful, of leaving something small but true behind. As the years passed, my body grew frail. Illness came, but it was not violent. It was more like a slow dimming of a lantern. I remember the last days clearly, lying in a bamboo-shaded room, listening to the birds outside, an old book open in my hand. I was not afraid. Death, to me, felt like a quiet release. When I exhaled for the final time, there was no torment. My face was calm. I thought, so this is how the journey ends. I believed my soul would walk its natural path, back to the place of rest, back to where ancestors waited, back to silence. But I was wrong. One day, rough hands disturbed the earth that held my bones. I felt the soil shifting, the coffin splintering, the fragments of me pulled out into daylight. Here, someone said, this one lived with virtue. His aura is clear. He is suitable for a holy amulet. Holy amulet? I did not understand. Death was supposed to be the end. Why was I being summoned again? They spread my ashes under the harsh sun. The light that once warmed me now burned like knives. I was no longer a person, just fragments displayed on cloth, treated like raw material. Then came the grinding, stone against stone, bone against pestle. The sound echoed like thunder in my soul. I was being broken, crushed, erased piece by piece. The powder was mixed with oils, herbs, and unknown substances. The smell was sharp, unnatural. It clung to me, forcing me into a shape that was not mine. And then they poured it all into a cold metallic mold. When the casing snapped shut with a sharp click, it was as though a door slammed in my face. I realized, with horror, that I was sealed. Inside, darkness, narrowness, no air, no light. Outside, they worked on a figure. I heard chisels carving, brushes scratching, paint being laid on a surface. They gave me a face, kind brows, gentle smile, eyes lowered in serene blessing. But it was not my face. It was an invention. Finally, someone stepped back, satisfied. This is a god of literature, a bringer of success in study, in career, in wealth. A god? No. I had never been one. I was a teacher. I corrected strokes on paper. I placed my coat on the shoulders of shivering children. I gave what little I had to those who needed it more. That was my life. Ordinary, honest, human. And yet, all of it was stripped away. My name erased, replaced with a title I never chose. My story replaced by fabricated legends, tales of great virtue, divine blessings, supernatural signs. None of it belonged to me. But now, to the world outside, I was no longer the teacher. I was a god, whether I wanted it or not. And in that moment, I understood. Death had not freed me. It had chained me tighter. I was not allowed to rest. I was being forced into a second life, under a mask I never consented to wear. The day they decided to make me into an amulet, the sky was bright and merciless. The sun blazed overhead, and the air was dry. To them, it was the perfect weather for preparation, clean, hot, suitable for drying and preserving. But to me, it was exposure. It was desecration. I could feel the hands sifting through my remains, lifting fragments of bone, as if they were stones picked from a riverbed. Each clink of bone against bamboo basket rang like a blow to my spirit. To them, it was a practical task. To me, it was the sound of violation, proof that I was no longer treated as human. They poured me out onto a thick cloth, spreading me beneath the searing daylight. For the living, sunlight means warmth, clarity, and life. For me, it was needles piercing every fragment of my being. I thought death meant no more pain, no more sensation. But the truth was different. I felt everything. Then came the grinding. Stone mortar, heavy pestle. Each strike was a thunderclap in my chest, a tremor in what remained of me. I was broken down, piece by piece, into dust. Not the gentle dust of time, but the violent powder of desecration. My memories seemed to shatter along with me. The sound of chalk on the board, the laughter of children in the courtyard, the softness of bamboo shadows in the afternoon sun. All of it fractured, reduced to powder. When they mixed me with herbs, oils, and secret ingredients, I felt my identity drowning. The smells were pungent, foreign, invasive. It was as though my own essence was diluted, replaced by things I did not recognize. I was no longer myself. I was a mixture, a concoction, an object in the making. And then the mold. The metallic shell was cold, heavy, indifferent. They poured the mixture into it with efficiency, as if they were filling a vessel with clay. When the two halves clamped shut with a sharp click, I felt the world vanish. No sky, no air, no sound. Only darkness pressing in from all sides. I was sealed, caged, silenced. Outside, they worked on a figure. I could not see, but I could hear. The rasp of carving tools shaping wood. The brush of bristles against surface as they painted. The acrid scent of lacquer seeping through even the sealed case. They were creating a face for me. When it was finished, they placed it on display. I caught glimpses, reflections of their words, vibrations through the casing. A kind face, they said. Gentle eyes. A god of literature, of study, of success. It was not my face. It was not my story, but it was now my prison. They announced me to the world. This is a god who brings fortune in exams, in promotion, in wealth. They named me as if they owned me. They gave me a divine identity I had never claimed. I wanted to scream, no, I am not your god. I wanted to tell them, I was a teacher. I was human. That was enough. But my voice could not pass the casing. It only echoed within me, unheard. The days that followed were worse. I began to hear voices, not from the makers, but from those who bought me, who wore me, who prayed to me. At first, the voices were soft, almost hesitant. Let my child pass the exam. Help me get promoted. Bring more customers to my shop. Each plea was a ripple that reached me. They did not call me by my name, for they did not know it. They called me by the title I never chose, God. Each time, I felt their hopes pressed down upon me, like stones piling higher and higher. I tried to respond. I had once been a teacher. I knew the struggles of learning, the weight of failure, the longing for a chance. So I reached inside myself and tore off a fragment of light. I pushed it outward, hoping it would touch them. It was not much, just a small spark, a whisper of support. But sometimes it was enough. A child passed an exam, and his mother wept with joy before my image. A merchant had a good week, and he lit candles in gratitude. They said, the god is merciful. The amulet is powerful. But they were wrong. It was not a god. It was me, still human, still trying to give, even when I had nothing left. Yet each response cost me. Every fragment of light I sent out left me dimmer, weaker, hollower. I was not an infinite well. I was a person, reduced to dust, trying to give beyond my end. And the prayers kept coming. Not dozens, hundreds. Not once, but endlessly, day and night. Voices overlapping, desperate, insistent. Let me win. Make me rich. Give me luck. Help me surpass others. The words crashed into me like waves, relentless, drowning me. I could not rest. I could not hide. I could not say no. And then I realized something terrifying. This was my existence now. Not rest, not silence, but endless demands, endless voices, endless burning of what little remained of me. Death had not freed me. Death had sentenced me. I had not been returned to peace. I had been condemned to servitude, all because someone decided my bones were suitable. The prayers began as whispers, tentative, almost shy, a boy begging for his exam results, a father muttering about his job promotion, a shopkeeper hoping for one more day of customers. At first, I could tell them apart. The child's voice was thin and trembling. The young man's was restless, full of hunger. The mother's was thick with tears, her words dripping into me like rain. Each one was different, each one was alive. And so I tried to answer. I had once been a teacher, after all. I understood what it meant to strive, to fear, to hope. I wanted to help. I reached inside my dimming self and pulled out a fragment of light. It was like tearing away a piece of my own heart. But I gave it anyway, pushed it out into the boy's trembling hands, into the weary father's sleepless nights, into the mother's prayers over her child's bed. Sometimes it worked. A boy passed. A father was promoted. A child's fever broke, if only for a time. And when it did, their joy was overwhelming. "Blessed amulet," they cried. "The God has heard us." They placed offerings, lit candles, bowed deeply. But I felt no joy, because I knew the truth. It was not a God. It was not divine. It was me, still trying to give, even after death had taken everything. It was me, burning what little I had left. The prayers grew louder. One by one, then two by two, then dozens upon dozens. Day and night, without pause. At first it was manageable, like rain dripping on stone, but soon it became a flood, a roaring tide that never stopped. Let me win. Let me be first. Make me rich. Make me better than the others. The voices piled on top of one another, 1,000 hands pulling at my soul, tearing at my essence. I was drowning in them. Each time I responded, a little more of me vanished. Each time I resisted, the pressure doubled. I could not rest. I could not hide. I could not say no. And then came the anger. When their wishes failed, when luck did not change, their voices turned sharp, cutting, cruel. Why didn't you answer me? Are you fake? Are you useless? Their disappointment burned worse than their demands, because it told me what I truly was to them. Not a soul, not a person, not even a memory, just a tool, a machine for miracles. And when the machine failed, they cursed it, blamed it, threatened to throw it away. I wanted to shout, "I am not a god." I wanted to cry, "I am not your servant, not your answer, not your guarantee." But my voice could not leave the casing. My words only echoed back into me, unheard, unheeded. The prayers continued, day after day, night after night. Some begged with tears. Some demanded with rage. Some whispered with greed. All of them pressed against me until I thought I would shatter. I began to fracture inside. One part of me wanted to keep giving, to hold on to the compassion I had carried as a teacher. Another part of me wanted to resist, to refuse, to scream until the voices stopped. But I could do neither fully. If I gave, I was consumed. If I resisted, I was crushed. And so I lived in the in-between, burning, resisting, breaking, pulled apart in every direction. I remembered the classroom. Children bent over their papers, fumbling with strokes, writing characters upside down or backwards. I never shouted. I would smile, correct them gently, say, "It's all right, try again." But here, there was no try again. There was only yes or no. Answer me, or you are worthless. Give me what I want, or you are fake. It was not education. It was not growth. It was demand, pure and raw. and I was trapped beneath it. One day, a young man placed me on a gambling table. He begged me silently, then loudly, then desperately. At first, he won and he laughed, kissed the casing, called me powerful. But when his luck turned, his laughter twisted into rage. "You're useless," he spat. His hand struck the table, rattling me, cracking me. I felt the impact ripple through my soul. The anger of one man burned deeper than the gratitude of 10. Another time, a mother prayed over her child's illness. When the child improved, she wept with joy, thanking me, thanking the God. But when the sickness returned, her voice broke into fury. "Why did you betray me? Why did you stop?" She shoved me aside. Her tears turned to accusations. I wanted to tell her, I cannot rewrite fate. I can only give what little I have. But she could not hear. And so I began to realize the truth. It was not me they wanted. Not my soul, not my story, not my humanity. They wanted results. And if they did not receive them, they would discard me like trash. That is what I was to them. Not a teacher, not a person, not even a ghost. Just an object. Useful when it worked, garbage when it failed. The flood of voices never stopped. I felt myself splitting, 1,000 fissures racing through what remained of me. I wondered, how long until I collapse entirely? How long until there is nothing left? And worst of all, I knew what would follow. When I finally broke, when I could no longer answer, they would curse me, throw me aside, replace me with another. And my story, my life, my name, all of it would vanish into silence. This was not death. This was not rest. This was a second, crueler life. A life of endless demands, of endless tearing, of endless silence on my part. I had thought dying meant freedom, but here I was bound tighter than ever, pulled apart by hands that never cared who I was. At the beginning, there was reverence. They placed me carefully on altars, surrounded me with incense smoke, lit candles that flickered like stars in the dim room. Their hands pressed together, their foreheads bent low. I could feel the heat of their devotion. Their eyes shone with hope. They called me God, guardian, merciful protector. And though the words were false, I still felt the weight of their faith. I tried, despite everything, to answer. I gave fragments of myself, small sparks of light that once were my memories, my lessons, my love for my students. I pushed these fragile remnants out into the lives of strangers. And sometimes it seemed to work. A boy passed his exams. A merchant's business thrived for a season. A young man received a promotion. When these things happened, their joy was overwhelming. They wept before me. They bowed, touched the ground with their heads, poured offerings of fruit and wine, lit sticks of incense until the smoke thickened like a cloud. Powerful amulet, they said. Merciful God, always reliable. Their gratitude was loud but fleeting, for even as they praised me, they asked for more. One blessing was never enough. Every answered prayer only birthed 3 more demands. And then, inevitably, came the moments when I could not answer, when fate was immovable, when illness ran its course, when the dice rolled against them, when the job went to another. The first response was confusion. Why not this time? Was the offering not enough? Did I pray incorrectly? Soon confusion hardened into doubt. Perhaps this one isn't strong. Maybe the stories were exaggerated. Maybe I was tricked. And then doubt festered into anger. Fake. Fraud. Useless piece of stone. I remember one gambler in particular. He wore me around his neck, pressing me between his palms before every round. At first, he won, and with every victory, he kissed the casing, whispering, "Powerful one, you never fail." But luck shifts as it always does. The dice turned against him. The cards betrayed him. His joy curdled into rage. "You're worthless," he shouted, slamming his fist onto the table. The shock reverberated through me, rattling my spirit until I thought it would splinter. He ripped me from his neck and hurled me across the floor. The impact rang like thunder inside me, a wound deeper than death. To him, I had ceased to be sacred. I was just a broken tool, discarded the moment it failed. Another time, a mother prayed for her sick child. Her tears soaked the floor. Her trembling hands clutched me so tightly I could feel her pulse. I tried, I truly did. I gave everything I could, a final sliver of warmth to ease the child's fever. For a time, it worked. The boy smiled again, ate again, laughed weakly at his mother's side. She fell to her knees in gratitude, calling me a god, a savior. But illness does not always heed the desperate. The fever returned, fiercer, and the child slipped back into danger. The mother's gratitude turned in an instant to fury. "You betrayed me," she cried. "You abandoned my son." She struck me against the table, her sobs sharp as knives. I prayed. I gave offerings. "Why did you stop?" Her grief poured into me, scorching me worse than fire. I wanted to explain, to plead. I am not omnipotent. I cannot rewrite life. But she heard nothing. To her, I was guilty of failure. To her, I was a god who had refused to act. And so, my existence became a cycle. Devotion when wishes were met. Doubt when they faltered. Anger when they failed. Discard when all else was exhausted. I was not seen as a soul. I was not remembered as a man. I was a product, praised when useful, cursed when not. Some sold me when I no longer satisfied them, passed me from hand to hand like second-hand clothing, advertising me with lies to hide their disappointment. "This amulet once brought great luck," they would say. "Perhaps it will work better for you." I felt every exchange, each careless handoff like being torn from one prison to another. No reverence, no memory, only transaction. Others simply threw me away, into drawers, into boxes, into piles of forgotten trinkets. Some tossed me into trash heaps, where rain and mud seeped into the cracks of my casing. I remember lying in the dirt one night, raindrops striking me like cold nails. A child found me, picked me up curiously. "What is this?" he asked. His parent glanced and scoffed. "Broken, worthless, leave it." And the boy dropped me back into the mud. That was what I had become. Not a teacher, not a soul, not even a god, just waste. The worst were the curses. The fake ones deserve hell. False gods should be destroyed. They spat these words with venom. They never asked who I was, never considered that I might have been human. They crowned me God without consent. And when I failed their fantasies, they condemned me as fraud. Do you understand the cruelty of that? I never wanted the crown. I never asked for worship. I never claimed divinity. It was forced upon me. And when the mask cracked, they punished me for wearing it. At night, I lay in silence, shaking. The echoes of curses, of accusations, of careless footsteps abandoning me. They rang louder than the prayers ever had. I whispered into the void. Why? Why must I bear this? Why must I suffer for the lie you created? But no answer came. No one listened. No one cared. I was no longer human. I was no longer a teacher. I was not even a soul in their eyes. I was only an object, broken when it failed, discarded when it displeased, damned when it disappointed. This is how hope turns to disappointment. This is how devotion turns to hatred. This is how the human heart reveals its sharpest edge. Quick to worship, quicker to condemn. And I, trapped in this casing, could only endure it all. The rise of their joy, the crash of their rage, the cold silence of abandonment. Again and again, until my very essence felt like shattered glass, ground down by the weight of expectations I never chose to carry. After the waves of praise, doubt, and curses, I fell into silence. Not because I had no words, but because I finally understood that my voice could not pass the walls of this casing. The people who prayed to me never heard what I said. They only heard themselves. And so I began to ask questions. Not to them, for they would never answer, but to myself, to the universe, to anyone who might be listening beyond the veil. What does it mean to be a soul? Am I still human when my name has been stripped away, my body broken into dust, my face replaced by a mask I never chose? I was once a teacher. I lived a life of simple work and simple joy. The chalk dust on my hands, the bamboo shadows in my courtyard, the children's laughter in the afternoon sun. These were my treasures. But now, who remembers? No one. They only remember the God they invented, the merciful one, the powerful one, the fake one. They never remember me. Sometimes I try to be gentle with them in my thoughts. Perhaps they do not mean harm. Perhaps they are only desperate, only seeking light in a world that often feels too dark. Exams that decide futures, illnesses that steal children, poverty that crushes hope. In their fear, they search for someone, anyone, to bear the burden for them. But does that make it right? Does desperation excuse the theft of dignity? Why must their longing become my chains? Why must their hunger consume the little that remained of me? I ask humanity, do you know what a God truly is? Do you understand what a soul truly is? Do you want guardians, or do you want miracles? If you want guardians, then guardianship is not one-sided. It is not taking without giving. It is not demanding without respect. It is relationship. It is recognition. It is seeing the other as they are. But you do not see us. You do not even try. You only see what you project. Your needs, your greed, your desperation. We are mirrors, not companions. We are vessels, not beings. If you want miracles, then know this. Miracles were never free. They were never guarantees. They were never vending machines for your wishes. Miracles arise when courage meets despair, when love breaks through darkness, when people find strength inside themselves that they never believed they had. But you have twisted the word. You have made miracles into transactions. A coin in the bowl, a stick of incense, a whispered plea, and then you demand return, success, wealth, health, power, as if life can be purchased, as if fate can be bribed. That is not miracle. That is greed. In the quiet moments, I whisper to myself truths no one else will hear. I am not a god. I am not a product. I am not your tool. I am a man who lived, who taught, who loved, who died. I am a soul who should have been allowed to rest. But the casing is thick, and the silence outside is thicker. So my questions echo only within me, bouncing against the cold walls of my prison. I watch the cycle continue, one owner after another, one demand after another. Praise, doubt, anger, discard. It never ends. And as it repeats, I see a truth. They do not need me. They never wanted me. They only wanted a doorway, a surface to project onto, a vessel to carry their hope and their blame. Whether the vessel contained a god or a ghost, whether it once was a farmer, a mother, a teacher, it did not matter. Any vessel would do. Any soul would suffice. We are interchangeable in their eyes. And so I reflect, perhaps this is the cruelest truth of all, that humans say they respect the dead, but what they truly respect is only their own comfort. They say they honor ancestors, but they desecrate graves. They say they give thanks to gods, but they curse us when fate does not bend. They say they wish for souls to rest, but they refuse to let us sleep. So I turn my questions to you, listener. When you wear an amulet, what do you really want? Do you want power, or do you want an escape? Do you want protection, or do you want a shortcut? Do you realize that behind the object you hold may lie a soul, ordinary, unwilling, unseen, forced to carry what you do not want to bear yourself? Do you know that every prayer you whisper lands on a heart that may already be breaking? Do you know that every curse you spit lands on a soul that never asked to be here? I do not expect answers. I do not even expect change. But I must at least ask, because if I cannot ask, if I cannot even speak, then what am I? A ghost? An echo? Or just a silence sealed in metal? This is my reflection. This is my question. Not to condemn you, but to remind you, we are not gods. We are not objects. We are not infinite. We are human, and even after death, we still need dignity. At night, when the incense burned low and the voices of prayer softened into whispers, I thought I might find rest. But there was no rest. Silence only made the pressure sharper, like the ringing of a bell after it has been struck too hard. Inside the casing, I trembled. The weight of demands, the weight of curses, the weight of being unseen. It pressed on every corner of me. I began to cry, not with tears, for I had none left, but with the raw vibration of my spirit. It was a soundless cry, a tremor, a wound echoing in the dark. Let me go. Please let me sleep. I am not a god. I am only human. The words spun in the prison of my shell, never escaping, never reaching the ears they were meant for. The harder I pressed them outward, the harder they recoiled, slamming back into me until I shook with the impact. But then, one night, I heard something else. A voice. Not a prayer. Not a demand. Not anger. It was a sigh. Low, tired, broken. And then another. And another. We are here too. I froze. The darkness shifted, filled with whispers I had never noticed before. Soft, fractured voices, like the breath of the wind through broken reeds. I was a farmer, one murmured. They called me a god of wealth. I was a mother, another whispered. They named me a goddess of childbirth. I was a soldier, another rasped. They turned me into a talisman for victory. On and on the voices came, dozens, then hundreds, faint but undeniable. Each one told the same story. A life once lived ordinary and human, a death that should have been an ending, and a second imprisonment forced into divinity. And in that moment, I realized I was not alone. There were countless others, sealed and silenced, all crying the same truth. We are not gods. Something inside me cracked open. The cry that had been only mine became the chorus. Our voices overlapped, tangled, rose together. Release us. Do not use us. See us as we are. The sound was not human. It was the roar of many broken spirits. A storm inside the dark. No living ear could hear it, but within the unseen, it was deafening. For the first time since death, I felt power. Not the power they imagined, not miracle or blessing, but the raw power of truth screamed in unison. We were not alone. We were not silent. We bore witness to each other. And yet, even in that rising tide of voices, I felt despair. Because outside, nothing changed. The living still prayed, still demanded, still cursed. They could not hear the chorus beneath their feet, the endless mourning of the ones they enslaved. The struggle within me grew sharper. Half of me wanted to stop answering altogether, to shut down, to close, to refuse every demand. The other half, still clinging to the teacher I had once been, ached when I heard a child cry, when I heard a plea born of true suffering rather than greed. So I burned again. I gave sparks when I could, even as it hollowed me further. And every time I did, the other half of me screamed, "You are destroying yourself. Stop." The war inside me was endless. Give or resist. Help or protect myself. Neither path saved me. Both tore me apart. In the silence after the chorus, I whispered to the others, "What should we do? How do we end this?" But the answers were always the same. More sighs, more cries, no solutions. Because what could we do, sealed in shells we never chose, worshipped by those who never knew us, discarded when we failed them? We were chained. We were powerless. All we could do was cry. And so the cry became our only rebellion. It was weak, but it was ours. Every night, the chorus rose again, unseen and unheard. We are not gods. We are not tools. We are human. The words ricocheted through the unseen like thunder without lightning, powerful but invisible. We screamed, we shook, we wept, until the very darkness trembled with us. And still, the living did not hear. This is my struggle, to be pulled between compassion and survival, to burn for others while burning myself away, to scream in unison with countless souls, knowing no one outside will ever listen. And yet we continue, because to cry together, to struggle together, is the only proof left to us that we were once human, that we still exist. If one day you hear a voice coming from the casing, do not dismiss it as your imagination. Do not call it madness. It is us. It is me. We are speaking finally, desperately, though you rarely choose to listen. What I want to say is simple. We are not gods. We are not infinite wells of power. We do not hold the keys to life and death. We are not miracle machines you can carry in your pocket. We were people, ordinary, fragile, human. I was a teacher. I held chalk, not lightning. I corrected handwriting, not destiny. The only blessings I gave in life were words of encouragement. The only miracles I performed were moments of patience in a classroom. Others like me were farmers, mothers, soldiers, craftsmen. We worked, we loved, we suffered, and then we died. That was supposed to be the end. That was supposed to be enough. But you took us from the soil, ground our bones into powder, pressed us into shells, and renamed us gods. You say it is respect. You call it honor, but respect does not steal. Honor does not enslave. If you respected us, you would let us rest. If you honored us, you would remember our names, not erase them. So listen carefully. When you wear an amulet, do not imagine it is only metal and paint. Inside, there may be a soul, unwilling and exhausted, forced to carry the weight of prayers it never asked for. When you pray, know that your words do not fall into a void. They fall on someone's heart, a heart that might already be splintered, a heart that never agreed to be your God. When your prayers go unanswered, do not spit curses at the shell. Do not call us fake. Do not condemn us to hell. We never promised you anything. We never claimed power. It was you who placed us here. You who crowned us falsely. You who now blame us for failing to be what we never were. What I want to say is this: respect us. Release us. Let us be remembered as people, not as products. Let us sleep. Let us return to silence. If you truly wish for guidance, then find it in your own courage. If you truly seek miracles, then know they are born from love, from sacrifice, from human strength, not from enslaved souls sealed in metal. I am not cursing you. I am not condemning you. I am only asking for the simplest mercy. See us as we are. See that we were human. See that we never wanted this. See that even now, what we long for most is not worship, but rest. If you light incense again, before you ask for anything, stop for a moment. Ask instead, do you wish to help? Do you wish to speak? That one question changes everything, because it gives us back the choice that was stolen. If we answer, it will be freely given. If we stay silent, it will be because we finally have permission to sleep. This is what I truly want to say. Not rage, not endless lament, just this one truth. We are not gods. We are not tools. We are not infinite. We are human, and we deserve to be remembered as such. Listener, you have heard my story. You have walked with me through death, desecration, and silence. You have felt the weight of prayers, the cruelty of doubt, the sting of curses. Now I leave you with the one thing I have left, my words. I was never a god. I never carried divine authority. I was a teacher, a man who gave his life to children, to knowledge, to patience. My death should have been rest. Instead, it became another cage. Remember this. Every amulet you hold, every charm you wear, may not be a god at all. It may be someone like me, a soul pulled from the earth, silenced, sealed, and renamed. If you pray, pray with respect. If you ask, ask with humility. If you light incense, remember to ask first. Do you wish to answer? Give us back the choice that was stolen. I do not seek worship. I do not seek offerings. I do not seek miracles or praise. All I want is to be remembered as human, to be seen not as a product, not as a tool, not as an idol, but as a soul who once lived and who deserves rest. So carry this story with you. Do not let it fade the moment you remove your headphones. Do not bury it beneath daily noise. Because somewhere, unseen, unheard, there are countless others like me, still waiting, still crying, still hoping that someone, anyone, will finally listen. This is Whispers of the Unseen. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story touched you, remember to subscribe and save, so more people may hear the voices that were never allowed to speak. Until next time, farewell.
So